here is an X take that I saw that was very interesting. It was a text that somebody got, and they're kind of just framing it as people living in completely different realities. Some people watch mainstream media, some people watch alternative media, and it's almost this idea of a post-truth world. So the initial post was, could you explain why Ross Ulbricht shouldn't have been jailed? Silk Road was all about enabling illegal transactions. It's good to enable that ? I'm genuinely confused because conservatives used to believe in law and order. Or are you just feeling that 15 years was enough? So he responded, bruh, we live in two different universes. Pointless to talk. Sometimes it really does feel that way these days. So he wanted to reply to that message that he got from the guy who works at Facebook. Or he goes, your work at Facebook led to the death of 150,000 suicides, 25,000 deaths by political violence, 200,000 driving accident deaths. In total, you've directly contributed to almost 1 million deaths because of your work at Facebook. How long should you go to prison for? ? Blocked instead. It's just an interesting way to think about the two realities people are living in right now. It's emblematic of the current era we're in. What thoughts do you guys have on that?
Well, it kind of plays into what Scott Adams says, is two people watching the same movie, but we're seeing different films the entire way. It's same stuff we're seeing, we interpret it two different ways. So that's a good example of it, where we've got the one guy trying to say what Ross Ulbricht did was wrong, but he's also paralleling it with his work at Facebook doing the same thing.
What do you got, Scotty?
I'm along the same lines too. I'm in a group chat with a bunch of people that I differ with politically, and this is a little bit off topic, but we were talking about the RFK release of the documents, and then they were also talking about the fires in LA, and they didn't care at all about the RFK documents being released. They said, I'm too focused on, climate change and our world is on fire. Like the RFK document release is just a distraction from what's going on with the climate. Yeah, the JFK documents and RFK and MLK.
Yeah.
And, from my perspective, it's the other way around. We should be more concerned with the RFK, JFK assassination documents being released as opposed to the climate change stuff. The climate change stuff seems like more of a distraction. Obviously, what's going on there is horrible, and I don't wish that on anybody, but, you can be concerned about two things, and for them, they just only want to be concerned about climate change and what's going on in LA. So it's kind of like, we're again living in two different worlds, depending on like your algorithm or your political stance.
Context and perspective. First, I don't know. I look at the text. Could you explain why Ross Ulbricht shouldn't have been jailed? Well, he was jailed.
Yeah.
Do you feel like 15 years was enough? I think he did 11. Also, when you look at your work at Facebook led to the death of 150,000, 25,000, 200,000, contributed to 1 million deaths. And how directly was he involved with all this?
So the logic is basically what they're saying is Facebook engaged in mass censorship, controlling the narrative. The government was in their ear manipulating, basically telling them to take memes down, do all this stuff, censoring information. So the idea of the suicide deaths was from the COVID lockdowns, right? There's these second order knock-on effects when you shut down an entire economy and society. It's not everybody can afford to just go home and not work and not, pay their bills, not do whatever, right? These little $1,200 checks that they got, like that doesn't cover things for very long, right? So people could not afford, a lot of small business owners, especially in places like New York City, where they were the most Orwellian and authoritarian, California, people lost their businesses. Like, we're talking about, hey, this pizza shop's been here for 100 years. My father's father opened this shop, and now it's gone forever, right? You know what I mean? So, people started doing a lot more drugs. People were depressed. And there's really strong evidence of this, that the second order, you actually didn't save lives, you actually destroyed lives, right? Especially the full lockdowns and all this stuff. Like the masks were one thing, they were annoying, but like, when they shut down entire cities, like in Canada, and we're arresting people, and, Facebook was really responsible for a lot of that. They were, promoting that narrative, not letting political dissent, censoring speech. So that's the thought there. The 200,000 driving accident deaths, I'm not quite sure about that.
People looking on their phones on Facebook while they're driving.
Oh, okay.
I have to imagine.
I don't know what he's getting at there, but that one's a little bit of a stretch for me. But the political violence, I mean, absolutely BLM pushing for it, all these crazy, insane race narratives, and
isn't that where they did a lot of their organizing through Facebook Messenger and whatnot?
yeah, maybe at BLM and Antifa and all these different things where they went and burned down entire cities, blocks, and stuff. I won't forget this thing I saw. It's like this video, which is like, hey, a video of Afghanistan, and this guy's walking around a couple blocks. It's just like total chaos. Looked like bombs went off. Everything burnt down, entire complexes destroyed. And at the end, he's like, just kidding. This is Minneapolis. So, yeah. I mean, people are, January 6th was an insurrection and all this stuff. Like somebody broke a window. The only person that died was killed by the police. And like, I'm sure you can say these people are guilty of vandalism or whatever it is. Like literally BLM, like a month before that, burned down like half of a block in Washington DC and caused like the most damage that ever happened in society in like history of insurance. Like,
well, there was also the May 28th riot that happened when it was I think it was after Trump got inaugurated, where a bunch of BLM people are also there burning streets in Washington DC, and no one talks about it. There was just lots of property damage. And funny enough, I think the BLM activists sued for getting falsely arrested and won $1 million or something.
That's crazy.
Something insane like that.
Yeah, absolutely insane. So, just two different realities we're living in here. And you can see how the media will craft the narrative and push out this narrative, this horrible thing. And people are just unbelievably brainwashed. It's wild.
And in that tweet, he says that all transactions on Silk Road were illegal, but that's just false. I mean, it was a portion, but it's on everything.
So, for people who don't know, Ross he was like 19 at the time, 20. He was very young, right? And he was in college, created this website where it was a libertarian experiment, right? Where he just created the infrastructure for it and people could buy and sell whatever. It was a truly free market. They could buy and sell whatever they want, right? Some people use that market for legitimate purposes, right? And some people use it for drugs, weapons, whatever. You could argue that, hey, this should be a crime. This should be punished.
Well, I mean, he was punished.
Yeah, I mean, he was punished.
It's 2 life sentences plus 40 years.
Yeah, that's a violation of what we call the Eighth Amendment, right? Which is a cruel and unusual punishment. Someone with no criminal history, essentially a kid in college, like you could say, hey, you did a crime, but like, dude,
he didn't kill anyone.
No record, he didn't kill anybody, like he didn't rape anybody, wasn't a pedophile, like a non-violent crime of making a website,
you did software,
Like, I mean, come on, like 2 life sentences plus 40 years. Like, that's really the argument, right?
He went around banks in the Federal Reserve.
Yeah, it was about making an example.
They made an example, right? But that is a violation of the Eighth Amendment, right? That is a cruel and unusual punishment for a kid.
I mean, even the case they had against him was horribly shaky.
It was horribly shaky, yeah.
Yeah,
so they had to make up all this propaganda and push it into the news outlets. Yeah. Like, oh, he was going to do this and he was going to do that, when they really was like a bunch of entrapment by agents. The story is actually insane. Like, the FBI agents like started stealing, or the government agents started stealing the Bitcoin for themselves, and then they got caught. Like, wild stuff, like pretty cool watch. I think there's a documentary about it. It's interesting to watch. I don't even know how much of it's true, how much of it's not, because you can't trust anything that's told to you anymore. It's like, the burden of proof is like, you can't trust these guys.
So is he getting back that 19 billion, or is that,
hell,
I think that's
no, that ship has sailed, dude. He's not getting all that back. The government has sold most of that off, I believe. Yeah,
really, I thought they had a good
they've
chunk sitting in a wallet somewhere. Or
no, there might be a little bit left, but
I know they've tried to sell some. I don't think they're allowed to sell all of it.
No, that's not just from the Silk Road. The Silk Road Bitcoin, I believe, was bought by Tim Draper, if I'm correct, and he got it. Like, I think that was the best investment he ever made in his entire career, because if the government just sat on that, they'd be sitting on literally, $1 trillion or something ridiculously stupid, 500 billion, I don't know. But instead they sold it for like 50 million or some small amount.
Yeah, well, it's just like the whole pizza transaction. Now that one dude got 10,000 Bitcoin for a pair of pizzas.
Yeah. So let's look at this next take. Ross off. This is from the Redheaded Libertarian. I love her. She's awesome. Ross Ulbricht was supposed to be protected by Section 230, as he is not responsible for what other people did on his website. This is why Mark Zuckerberg, for instance, is not in prison for the child porn, CP, and trafficking on Meta. But what happened to Ross doesn't really have anything to do with that. And no, Ross wasn't put in prison for ordering a hit either. Ross was a libertarian who had created a decentralized website that used Bitcoin, and according to the judge, he needed to be made an example of. So he was handed 2 life sentences plus 40 years, which is an obscene violation of his Eighth Amendment, particularly for a non-violent, in quotes, crime. So yeah, I think she hits the nail on the head there. What's up next?
Well, it says in the comment right below, 170.
Russ also had 170 bit. Russ isn't going to get that back. Government would really want it. Yeah. That's like 18 billion today. Okay. I exaggerated a little bit on the amount, but still a lot, right?